Okay, let's look back at the first divisional action where the Eagles were able to come away with a victory, but not without a couple questions and significant injuries. Jalen Hurts returned to form and A.J. Brown schooled the Commanders secondary, while Nicholas Morrow may have just earned himself the starting linebacker spot. Plus, could Howie Roseman be looking to add a major addition to the defense? But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Alright, we still have some questions, but the good news is we're 4-0. Literally because of that guy and his insane clutch gene. After the Eagles got their first divisional action underway, taking on the 2-1 Commanders, with I think everyone assuming it would be a relatively easy game for Philly, since after all, the Birds were favored by nearly 9 points before the game. Except we know better with it being Washington and a divisional game, which, by the way, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it marked one of only 2 1 p.m. kickoff games this season, since the fellas won't be back for an early start at home until New Year's Eve versus the Cards. Speaking of returning, fortunately, one guy was back with running back Boston Scott returning from concussion, except for some, like Rashad Penny, that was bad news, with a 4th stringer getting listed as inactive again, meaning the 27-year-old has touched the rock 4 times in 3 games so far. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little surprised they haven't used him more to this point. However, the other inactives were Quez Watkins, Tanner McKee, Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, Tyler Steen, and Morrow Ajomo, with the biggest surprise being safety Justin Evans out after getting in a full practice on Friday, as the Birds decided to roll with only 4 active wide receivers on the roster and elevated safety Tristan McCollum for depth, with Terrell Edmonds getting to start at safety. Yet one of the most interesting developments, as Eagles beat writers noted in warmups, was that the first team defense consisted of Darius Slay and Josh Jobe as the outside corners, with James Bradbury playing the nickel, and it didn't take long for Washington to test that alignment. After the Commies won the toss and Sam Howell went straight to Terry McLaurin being guarded by Jobe for a terrific catch, although not terrible coverage, by the way. What was worse was the soft zone look that allowed Howell to move the ball down the field, although the Eagles did finally get a stop on 3rd down inside the red zone until a phantom holding call on Zach Cunningham extended the drive. And I couldn't really get a great angle, but from this 30,000-foot view, my expert advice is that was really suspect. Unfortunately, we didn't get much of an explanation, and that set up a 1st and goal from the 4.
And the ref said, "Any more questions? Hit the road."
Okay, despite whatever you think, we definitely weren't laughing after a Curtis Samuel jet sweep gave the Commanders the lead, capping off a 14-play, 75-yard drive. Pretty obvious, but not the best start. Yet time to see how the offense would answer, as offensive coordinator Brian Johnson dialed up several plays to DeAndre Swift, as well as Jalen Hurts finding A.J. Brown on a couple passes to methodically move down the field, which continued to be the recipe for success on the opening drive, where Jalen hit Agent Zero on a screen pass before some good play calling in the red zone led to Swift tying up the game after a walk-the-dog 5-yard touchdown, ending the 12-play drive in 7 points. And after those 2 really long drives from both teams, we were into the second quarter. Unfortunately, even with the extended break, the Philly pass rush shockingly couldn't get home early against the subpar O-line of Washington. Although, as Thomas Peterson pointed out, the Eagles generated 32 pressures in the game, so the lack of getting home could have been more on the weak secondary's fault. Either way, Scary Terry, as Slay refers to him, was kinda scary early on, consistently finding the open space and beating his one-on-one matchup before Howell, with more time again, found Logan Thomas over the middle. Oh yeah, and go ahead and tack on a couple more yards with a personal foul from Edmonds on that play. Although I know it's helmet to helmet, but still hated the call. I mean, it didn't really cost us at least, or it shouldn't have, with literally the best chance ever thanks to a pressure by Jalen Carter and BG, except for the life of me, I can't understand how Terrell Edmonds didn't catch the ball. Look, I'm pretty sure I could have even caught that pass. But amazingly, the Eagles got another chance at a turnover on the next play, when Nicholas Morrow ripped the ball out of Brian Robinson. However, unluckily for us Philly fans and guys playing McLaurin in fantasy, it was recovered in the end zone for a touchdown, with Washington taking a 14-7 lead. But Hurts and the offense looked like they may answer with a slant to AJ, although they eventually got stymied around midfield and incredibly decided not to use the brotherly shove on 3rd and inches, running Swift up the middle, who got stopped, bringing up a 4th and 1. I mean, you knew we'd go for it. This time, running the shove, where Hurts converted before being dogpiled and flags flying.
Over the line!
Huh?
I'm sorry, Smokey. You were over the line. That's a foul.
Yeah, someone was definitely over the line. Yet officials called it on Eagles left guard Landon Dickerson and not Kami Deron Payne, whose hand placement was literally under the football. I mean, sure, if you want to get technical, Dickerson is lined up too close and offsides, but to me, he's not near as bad as Payne.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
Yeah, except the rules must not apply when it involves the Philly QB sneak. Alright, sure, am I possibly a little biased? Maybe, but I'd be willing to bet this gets banned next season because that's where it feels like this thing's headed. Although I'm with Slay, who tweeted after the game, I see teams trying the QB sneak and don't get it. That should tell you something. Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks, as the Chargers found out, but you know, it's just unfair when Philly does it. Okay, getting back to the game though, the penalty forced a terrible 34-yard punt from Braden Mann, whose days feel numbered after 2 games so far. Yet I'm happy to say the defense stiffened, with Desai dialing up pressure for linebacker Nicholas Morrow to get home and collect the first sack. Although that was bad news for all the sack predictions since no one was correct. Don't worry though, we'll have another giveaway contest soon, so stay tuned in an upcoming video. As great as that sack was, Washington's Chase Young had an equally impressive sack on the next possession, blowing by left tackle Jordan Mailata, who had a much tougher day than he's had in the past weeks, which forced another Eagles punt, and maybe it was just me, but I started to get a little nervous at this point. After Howell and the Commanders marched down the field, finding some wide open looks and getting into the red zone where they were threatening to score, and the refs, once again, had a very debatable call on a pass interference from James Bradbury. I don't even have to tell you where I stand on this. Setting up the commies with a 1st and goal. But thankfully, Howell tripped on the next play and Josh Sweat cleaned up the sack, before Washington eventually settled for a Joey Sly field goal to go up 10 with a little over a minute remaining in the half, which meant Philly got the ball back but required a really gutsy go-for-it call on 4th and 1 from their own 34, especially considering the play call was a fake brotherly shove, although it ended up working, followed by taking a deep shot to Devontae Smith, who was matched up with Mr. I Keep Receipts Emmanuel Forbes. But just like in college, Devontae Smith told reporters about the play afterwards, saying, I knew I had that, because as Jimmy Kempski inserted, and I'd have to agree, Devontae Smith is the best pound-for-pound 50-50 ball guy in the NFL. So Forbes can keep the receipt on that one, because it cost Washington 3 points thanks to a 41-yard field goal from Jake the Make as time expired. Okay, not the best half, but it could have been worse, and at least the Birds got the ball to start the second half. Although history wasn't exactly on their side, as Jeff Kerr pointed out, the Eagles are 0-5 when trailing at half at home when Jalen Hurts starts. Well, that's all the motivation Hurts needed, as he dropped a dime on the opening possession to A.J. Brown for 28 yards, except the drive stalled again, meaning Elliott was asked to convert a 47-yard try, which of course he made, cutting the deficit to 4, and giving us the first look at the adjustment Sean Desai made with the defense at halftime. Although the refs seemed determined to make sure that didn't matter, calling a PI on Slay for this play. Fortunately, the Birds were bailed out by a drop from Jahan Dotson, and okay, no more messing around. Brian Johnson and Hurts took advantage of the scouting report on Forbes with his willingness to bite on double moves, or in this case, just a nice sell job on a Goddard screen, allowing AJ to get behind Forbes and then navigate some good blocking downfield for a 59-yard touchdown, which wasn't too surprising to see since Brown leads the NFL with 14 catches of 50-plus yards and 9 touchdowns of 50-plus yards since he came into the league 5 seasons ago. Although giving some of the play calling woes, it was nice to see an explosive play like that. Sirianni then followed it up with a successful 2-point conversion to Gainwell, taking the lead 21-17, where the Eagles D fed off that energy, keeping up the pressure on 3rd down, as Howell was nearly sacked before Morrow came flying in to finish him off for his 2nd sack of the game. Alright, and at this point, I think you'd love to see Philly put this one out of reach, because the Eagles started out positive, running through Kenny Gainwell, and then Hurts found Dallas Goedert throwing a dot to convert, with the Birds eventually reaching the red zone in the 4th quarter, but that's when the play calling got a little suspect, thanks to a Brian Johnson, or maybe it was Nick Sirianni, run it with Gainwell on a 3rd and 11, which unsurprisingly didn't work out, with Gainwell even fumbling. Now, fortunately, Lane Johnson was able to dive on it, but I think the play call left several of us, including Kendall Beck, to say, I still don't trust Brian Johnson.
I trust him. Cons, I don't really trust him.
Okay, we might not, but Sirianni does trust BJ.
All those calls, again, Brian and I make those, I help, we do those throughout the week. That's what we thought would give us the best chances to get the first down.
I don't know. I guess the end justifies the means, except settling for a field goal here and not trying to be a bit more aggressive isn't something I like to see. Curious about how you guys feel, though. At least the 3 by Elliott made it 24-17 before Howell kept the drive alive, converting on a 3rd and 2, and then converting another 3rd down where he escaped a would-be Jalen Carter sack and nearly getting the first down. Except the Zebras called a penalty for an unnecessary roughness on Terrell Edmonds, which I realize I sound like a broken record at this point, but what's Edmonds supposed to do there? Unfortunately, the strong strong Desai run D gave way to Brian Robinson, allowing the Commies to get into the red zone before capping the drive with a 15-yard run to tie up the score. And to make matters worse, Jalen and co couldn't do anything on the next drive, punting the football back to Howell. But oh my goodness, we finally had a Hassan Reddick sighting, with number 7 getting his first sack of the season to help get the ball back to the Eagles in great field position thanks to a strong return from the league's best punt returner Britton Covey, where Hurts found Olamide Zaccheaus for a strike to convert on third down after a drop on the previous play, bringing up the 2-minute warning. And then just a couple plays later, Hurts went with a surprising deep shot to A.J. Brown, connecting for the 28-yard score against Emmanuel, getting beat by the double move again, Forbes, putting the Birds up 7, leaving me like, little man, let's go. Except AJ was flagged for taunting for handing the ball back to Forbes after the score. And after the game, he said, I gotta be better, I'm a vet, I can't do stuff like that, it was unnecessary, Jalen talked to me about it, and sure, AJ's gotta be better, yet I kinda liked seeing Forbes all beside himself on the sideline. Although I probably shouldn't have, because like we saw, Howell was able to move the ball even after Nicholas Morrow's delayed blitz helped the linebacker come away with his 3rd sack of the game in what some might call the Nicholas Morrow game, where he registered 11 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 quarterbacks hits, and 1 forced fumble, leaving Morrow as the 2nd highest graded linebacker in the NFL through 4 weeks behind only Roquan Smith. More on number 41 in a second. But that sack didn't end it, with some impressive throws from Howell to convert first downs, along with more soft zone looks from Desai, eventually setting up a 2nd and goal with 1 second on the clock from the Philly 10. Yet Desai elected to not bring the pressure after it worked on the previous play against Howell, where Howell found Jahan Dotson going up against, take a guess, Josh Jobe. At least thankfully the Commanders didn't decide to go for 2 in the win, which I was terrified of, but Ron Rivera said after the game he decided to not go for it because his guys were gassed. So the XP sent us to overtime, where the Commanders got the ball first, but on a 3rd and 5 from the 29, Desai decided to bring the pressure as Howell put a nearly perfect ball up there for Terry McLaurin. And credit to Reed Blankenship on the coverage, who after further review helped use his arm or wrist to keep McLaurin out of bounds and bring up a punt, which was one of the worst of the day from Tress Way at just 29 yards, where Philly would take over at the 41, as Hurts went to AJ again, who finished with 9 catches, 175 yards, and 2 touchdowns, before not being able to convert on a wide receiver screen on 3rd down, bringing up another aggressive go-for-it call from Sirianni to pick up the extra yard, although we all knew the brotherly shove would convert. Except on second glance, some crazy conspiracy theorists claim Landon Dickerson actually jumped early and a false start should have been called. But come on, these refs were spot on all day. You'd be crazy to think they'd miss a call.
Does anyone else here see a double standard?
Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Although despite the conversion, an intentional grounding call followed by a Devontae 9-yard grab made it a 54-yard try for Mr. Clutch. And I don't think there was ever a doubt.
Ball is spotted. The kick is away. And the kick is gone! And the Eagles win!
Let's go! With the make, the Eagles are the first team since 1998 to start a season 4-0 when coming off a Super Bowl loss. And Jake Elliott is an impressive 10 for 16 from 54 yards out or longer in his career, which has earned him the nickname Chicken Little.
Chicken Little. Well, you can't do it.
Wait, where'd that come from?
That's just what I call it.
Chicken Little?
Yeah.
What do you call that?
Why?
Y'all ever seen Chicken Little? Yeah, that's what it looks like. Chicken Little.
Wow, come on, man. Although, sorry, Jake, once you've seen it, you can't really unsee it. Thankfully, we got the dub, so it's all right to celebrate a little bit, and Jalen even thought this was exactly what the Birds needed.
We needed a game like this for us. You know, I jokingly thought to myself, I guess we want to play a little longer tonight, but, you know, I think a win like this does so much for the spirit of a team. I'm proud of how we fought. I'm proud of how we overcame. I'm proud of how we were resilient. And I'm excited to continue to build and continue to grow as we've done this whole entire tenure so far.
All right, yeah, I'm sure this is one of those wins that galvanizes a team. But I agree with Kelsey, who said afterwards, I'd love to blow a team out, but I'll take it. A win's a win. We're not really playing our best football right now, but we're finding ways to win. Unfortunately, though, as E-Rock pointed out, this continues to leave us with the vicious cycle of, oh boy, I'm excited to watch my favorite team play, to I'm gonna kill myself. And then finally, hey, nice, we won.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. And even Sirianni recognized after the game that we're not where we need to be yet.
We're happy, to be 4-0, but we know that there's work to do. Even talking to Jason Kelsey after the game, he's like, we're 4-0, let's go. And, even he said, yeah, I know we got a lot to clean up. And he's right. We got a lot to clean up. And so there's a gratification that we're 4-0. but there's a hunger to grow.
Yeah, no doubt there's work to be done, but at least on the bright side, Hurts played much better with Sirianni describing him as clutch, as Jalen went 25 for 37 for 319 yards and 2 TDs, with a completion percentage above expectation of 11%. Otherwise translated as he played pretty good. Sure, he missed a couple, and nobody's perfect, but I think it's a really positive step that Jalen took in this game. Overall, I have to give AJ the game ball on offense and Nicholas Morrow the game ball on defense, and it'll be interesting to see who stays up with Nakobe Dean once he returns in 2 weeks between Morrow and Zach Cunningham, who had a team-high 13 tackles. Personally, I think you have to stay with Morrow, but would you dare not start Nakobe Dean? Okay, whoa. That's crazy talk, although the linebackers have played much better than I thought they would filling in for Dean. Of course, it's no surprise Jake Elliott gets the game ball on special teams, but curious to know who your biggest standouts were, as well as what are the biggest areas of improvement needed. For me personally, I think the coordinators are still question marks and needing to figure this stuff out, and I'll also go with Terrell Edmonds not being the answer at all at safety, because I mostly agree with Elliott Shore-Parks, who said Howie Roseman needs to make a move in the secondary. The second safety spot is an issue. James Bradbury needs to go back outside to cornerback. The answer at number 2 safety or nickel for this season isn't on the roster. Of course, I'd argue I'd like to see a little more of Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks to make the final determination. However, recent rumors have floated the idea of GM Howie Roseman going out and getting a guy like Panthers safety Jeremy Chinn, since like Jimmy Kimsky of the Philly Voice pointed out previously, as you may or may not know, if the Eagles hadn't selected Jalen Hurts in the 2020 draft, they would have taken Chinn. And according to Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer, Chinn is a player who could be dealt at the deadline, saying Chinn has always been an unusual fit within this defense. He's kind of a man without a home, despite the staff constant praise of him. While Brian Burns' name will be thrown around the trade rumors before the deadline, Chinn should probably be right there with him. In the final year of his deal, Chinn could presumably net the Panthers a day 3 pick on the trade market if they decide to move on before free agency and pass up the opportunity for a compensatory pick in 2025. Leaving Kimsky to say Chinn would make a whole lot of sense for Sean Desai's defense in a safety, linebacker, slot corner hybrid role, particularly against opposing tight ends. And I agree, I know it's been talked about before, but I'm with Evan Hearn, who said we should turn up the volume on asking Howie to trade for Jeremy Chinn. Okay, sure, it's probably still less than a 50% chance, but I'd be okay with Colts cornerback Kenny Moore as well. And yes, for the Budda Baker enthusiast out there, nothing's impossible, but that one feels like it's the most unlikely. What do you guys think though? Who would you like Howie to go out and make a move for? Also worth mentioning that Jeff McClain reported Britton Covey suffered a head injury late in the Eagles' overtime win and is now in the concussion protocol, as well as Cam Jurgens, who has a sprained foot and is likely to miss at least a couple weeks, being concerning for a couple reasons, since we'll have to rely on Sua Opeta, as well as we don't have a more solidified backup center now. And just in case anyone's wondering, Sirianni said Sua Opeta is the preferred guy over Tyler Steen. At least we're 4-0, since that's what really matters, with the Rams in LA coming up this week before taking on the Jets, which means the next Eagles home game isn't until week 7 on Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins, marking the return of the Kelly Greens. And I really can't wait for that, because that'll be the first game that I've been at in person this season. Also, just want to thank everyone for the continued support of the channel, as we just passed 19,000 subscribers in 7 months since starting. I mean, I just gotta say, this has been an absolutely wild ride, and I appreciate you guys more than you know. This has been the Philly Special.